Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to a rather interesting live stream. This is kind of something different. This is basically the kind of the talk of like if you have an insurance carrier for like a commercial building or a non-for-profit building. This is actually a very important thing that you have to keep into account. So just to get this up off the top of my list here, when a fire marshal comes through and does an inspection compared to your insurance agent. So typically when you have an inspection, doesn't matter who does it. So if you have we'll start off with the insurance part of it first. So when you have your insurance adjuster, they usually do the typical do the routine walk around the buildings and the grounds and to see if anything's in code violation, like if you got uneven sidewalks or if you got inadequate safety equipment like fire extinguishers or exit lights, or if carpeting is loose or something, or if floor is uneven, or if you're using inadequate extension cords, or if your bathrooms or hallways aren't ADA approved. Typically, like a doorway has, by law and code, has to be like 36 inches. So if something's like 32 or 33, you're going to get dinged on that instantaneously. Now, note to self here, your fire department's not going to comment on the wideness of the door. The only thing that they're going to probably say is, maybe you should think about widening that. But that's as much as the fire department would say. And it also depends on because each fireman that comes through or fire marshal that comes through, each one has their own different opinion of what they think things should be. A lot of times there's some that look at different things more than others. It's like one time I was on an inspection with the fire marshal for the church that I'm working for, and there was up above the ceiling in the utility room, for instance, there's an abandoned wiring junction box with a bunch of dead wires, and out of everything else that he could have commented on, he just commented on a box with a bunch of dead wires that were terminated to begin with. Everything was properly terminated, had the proper size wire nuts on there, but just didn't have a cover on there because it was dead. And it was not really visible either. It was tucked away quite well above the ductwork and stuff running through there. So a lot of times your fire marshal, and sometimes if you're lucky, like let's say the next neighboring town, sometimes a fire marshal from a neighboring town will come and accompany the fire marshal from your local town, or somebody from the state, Madison or Milwaukee or Manitowoc or Sheboygan or Burley or Chilton will come and assist. And they sometimes even have their 2 cents. Well, actually, it's not. I shouldn't say it's really 2 cents, but a lot of times they'll nitpick about things like. So we had an inspection one. That was actually a different inspection. That was That was back in 2017 already. Yeah, that had been 2017, or it could have been 2018. The fire marshal wanted extinguishers at every entrance, plus in addition an extinguisher at the top of the steps and at the bottom of the steps. So the steps, there's probably about 8 steps that go up into the church from the outside entrance. And basically, Why would you need two extinguishers within 8 feet of each other? That's chances are you're not going to run to the top of the steps and grab that extinguisher. You're going to grab the one from the bottom of the steps. That would be my first instinct if I was coming in and I saw a fire. I don't know. Maybe and fire extinguishers aren't cheap either. Sometimes they're about $300 and some a piece. And I'm not talking buying Menards style Kita. I'm talking ones that are. Well, it's like even here at the office, I had bought a. Last year I spent about 80 some dollars after taxes on a Kita 10-pound dry chemical. And that was still not the right extinguisher for what I'm doing here. I need a specialty extinguisher since I got a lot of electronic equipment running here, and as you can see, some of the stuff that's lurking in the back. And basically, one thing that's never been commented on, thank goodness, is a suppression system or a sprinkler system for the church building or the daycare building on the school site or the rectory, because that would get expensive if you had to put a sprinkler system in. So that's and as far. So we're gonna get back to the fire marshal topic. So sometimes the only time that a fire marshal will write you up in violation is, for instance, like a cover missing over a dead electrical box that's way out of sight that only somebody looking to find something wrong would look for. Or if you had rubbish piled around like boilers or something, or inadequate use of extension cords, or if you're using extension cords as permanent wiring, like through doorways or a hole in the wall, or stapled to a wall or ceiling, it is not code, and it could cause a real potential. And what's worse is there are some people out there that use extension cords as a way of wiring up a building into power strips and stuff, and daisy chaining power strips and daisy chaining, and just continuously. You know how dangerous that is when you do? Because let's say a certain item you're running is like a higher amperage than like a boombox or a battery charger or something, or a computer, and it gets so hot. Because typically, like with a circuit breaker, if something is splurging or using too much amperage, or it's getting too hot, it works as a safety switch, and it'll trip out to prevent it from getting too hot and causing a fire. And if your breakers aren't tripping out in an instance like that, then you need to get an electrician and have them sort it out before before a catastrophe happens, like your electrical fire, or if somebody gets killed or seriously injured. Because house fires or electrical fires are no laughing matter, or death or serious injury is no laughing matter either. So it's very important to have proper electrical, and basically your fire marshal, even though that you get annoyed with them for finding all that stuff, but actually, in a way, they're only doing their jobs. And you shouldn't even look at it from that aspect. Basically, they're trying to keep you safe, and they're trying to cover their rears, so in case there is a fire. And the reason that fire marshals and fire department come through your buildings is in case there's an accident, in case something happens, or somebody has a heart attack, or some assistance, or a fire or something. It's good that they all know the layout of each and every building, so that it's familiar to them in case there is an emergency, so they know what to expect when they come in. So that's also a very important thing as well. In that way, it's in older buildings you can probably get away with this, but you can build room upon room instead of having hallways. But in today's building code, well, by law, you're supposed to have hallways instead of going through rooms to get to other rooms. In this building, it's kind of controversial. Down here, there's a hallway to get to, like the upstairs and the basement. But when you get down to the basement, you go room to room. Compared to in the back half of the building, I don't really remember what that looks like. It's been years since I've seen any glimpse of. And the upstairs, I don't really know what the layout is. If I had blueprints or something, I could lay it out and look at it, but that's not really the main point of the video here. It's just kind of, I'm using that as an example. So basically, if you build room upon room, and the fire marshal knows about it, they're not going to want to go in that building, because in case there is a fire and they're in there, and all of a sudden debris or something falls down and blocks them in, they could actually get trapped and burned alive. So with a hallway, you got a better chance of escaping a fire than having to go a room upon room. So basically, we're going to jump onto the other topic of. So what you want to do, like with even like a room like this, it's not. I have to admit, it's not the most neatest and tidiest. But what you want is at least a decent 6 feet path going from the front to the back. So when people come and go, that they get enough room to move around, and just basically enough room to get around the place without tripping and falling over anything. So they will ding you on messiness in a commercial building. So keep in mind, keep all your fire exits empty. Don't keep any rubbish or garbage, because they'll also cite you on if you got bags of garbage lying around. And now in some cases, like if you have a implement or a shop or something, don't be surprised if your fire marshal dings you for not having a $1,000 safety cabinet and $200 safety cans and an explosive cabinet to go along with it. Well, the reason for the explosive proof cabinet is gasoline sometimes can become combustible, like due to fumes or something sparking or arcing, or if you got a lot of machinery around. And even your aerosol cans can sometimes explode under unknown conditions or problems. So that's something you have to watch out for too. Sometimes spray paint. I've had an aerosol can explode on me. That was like a can of bug spray or something, or bug raid. If you have an old can of aerosol, be careful, because it might, if you shake it up too much or you do something wrong with it. I had it one time where I created enough pressure to the point where it just blew apart, and the pressure is so great in the can. That was That was probably about 6 years ago. I was just attempting to get rid of some ants around the rectory, and that can just blew. I'm surprised I didn't get shrapnel embedded into my skin from the way that blew apart. So, lesson to be had there. Don't be careful with aerosol cans because you don't know what condition they're in. I'm not saying all of them are going to be like that, but chances are you're going to run into one at some point in time that is under an excruciating amount of pressure. So just keep in mind safety first. So another thing that we're going to also talk about is not every fire marshal will require this, but some will require like a safety log of your fire extinguishers monthly, of inspection of smoke alarms, or if you have a fire system. A lot of buildings now have an automated fire alarm system that's computer automated. Not everybody's lucky enough to have that kind of money to spend on systems like that. Some even have manual smoke alarms in buildings, like the one that's up on the ceiling there. That was just a cheapie from Menards that the landlord got me for in here, which he felt bad that there wasn't anything here. So, and in some cases, your fire marshal might also even check others. Want you to have like a safety procedure plan in place, and they will also check like your entrances to make sure you got the proper, adequate like handrails for going up and down the steps, and make sure that everything is measured out just a certain way. And they also even check your doorknobs to make sure they're at the right height, because if they're not, they're going to ding you on that too. And sometimes you have to watch out for is not all fire marshals are building inspectors. So if they, and they're not boiler inspectors either, so if they start poking at your boilers, don't let them touch any of the controls on them. Don't let them mess with anything, because good chances are that they don't know anything about boilers. The only thing that they can do is just kind of glance at them real quick to make sure there's no debris around them. But as far as, and even electrical panels, don't let them open them up. The only thing that they can do is just kind of open the cover and look at the switches, but that's about it. Don't let them actually physically open it up to the backside and expose the wires, because chances are they might electrocute themselves by accident. So then another thing that they're probably going to check is, so if you got a church, for instance, they might hassle you about burning candles. So that's, I'm not really going to get into that, because most public buildings aren't going to have candles going. Only churches are exempt from no candles. So we're going to now move on to the insurance agent part of this little segment. So for instance, you have an insurance agent come, and if you have insurance like building insurance or any property insurance, the thing that you have to watch out for is that you don't let the insurance agent on his own look around, because he might get into some mischief, like they usually do. So the thing that you have to realize, you think fire marshals are picky, your insurance agents and adjusters and investigators, they're about 10 times more pickier than your typical fire marshals and fire inspection agencies or your local fire departments. Or so, like with your insurance agents, they're going to hound you if you don't have safety records. They want to know, like, if your parking lot is level. They want to know if your grass is cut. They want to make sure you got adequate lighting in the parking lot at night. And if you don't have any of that, they're going to ding you on it. And they want to make sure that your carpet is properly fastened down, or your floor is perfectly level, and your steps are in good condition, that the risers are at the correct height, and that steps aren't mismatched or uneven in places, or because like 100 years ago, actually even longer than 100 years ago, about 120, 130 years ago, when they built buildings, they didn't care if the steps were code or not, or proper length. They didn't care if things didn't quite line up. Nowadays, you got to go according to what's code in your county or municipality, because not every municipality has the same building codes. Like if you live in a homeowner association, it's basically a dictatorship, and it's the worst thing that you could possibly get yourself into, because your homeowner association, people that run homeowner associations tend to be control freaks. Some of them are delusional. Some of their repulsive thinking is of ideas of what the neighborhood should do, like leave their garage doors open all day long and find people that don't. That's the kind of stuff that throws a red flag that they don't belong being in charge of something like that. And homeowner association is not a good thing to even have. It should be banned in America altogether, because it doesn't. Prestige is fine and good, but not when you take it so far that you drive everybody else repulsively crazy. So the next thing that you also have to consider is, so if you got like a school or a church or a daycare, chances are your insurance agent is going to ask if you have an active shooter plan in place. And a lot of places do. So what you also have to consider is that they may even require you to get bulletproof glass doors or bulletproof windows or even film. But when you're picking out contractors to put these in, make sure that they're reputable. Don't go with somebody who's like Ed's Remodeling or something. Or don't get somebody that's a fly-by-night. Get somebody that you know does reputable work if you have to get any work done. So for another instance, if your insurance agent comments like on doors and stuff like that, what's going to happen is they're going to kind of check everything with a fine-tooth comb, and they're going to make sure that you got the proper style, like panic bars on the exterior doors, and to make sure that they open properly and close properly. And if they don't, they're going to write you up a work order saying that, or not a work order, but just write out a report saying, okay, we'll be back in 30 days to check on and make sure that you got this fixed or replaced. So then they'll also just do a general walk around even more and just kind of look things over. And as long as you don't got extension cords running through the wall or running through doorways or across the floor, or using inappropriate sized extension cords for heavier appliances. Now, note to self: if you have a commercial building, or if you have a daycare or school or office, you cannot use house or two-pronged household extension cords with like the multi-plug on the end. Specifically, those were never meant for commercial buildings. Even though that most of the time when people use them for plugging Christmas lights in and stuff, that is a no-no. That's a big thumbs down to insurance agents and fire marshals. They will ding you on household extension cords. In your case, I wouldn't go any lower than a 16 gauge grounded extension cord. In the maximum amount of days that you can use one is about 30 days as a temporary use. So, like, let's say for a fan, or if you got contractors working, that's fine. But typically, contractors, they tend to use 14 gauge to 12 gauge, sometimes even 10 gauge extension cords, depending on the kind of tools they're using, the application of work. And not all of them will use your power either. Some of them have generators, and then there's a different class of cords for generators with the twist plugs on there. So that's OSHA is a totally different topic. We may elaborate on to tonight, or maybe I'll save that topic for tomorrow. Yeah, I think we'll save OSHA for tomorrow. But basically, your insurance agents, they're not going to be coming through all the time. Maybe once every 3 years. And if you have ladders around, and if you don't have them properly fastened to the wall or put away in such a fashion that they see fit, they will also write you up on that. And also note to self, your insurance agent, if you have any wood ladders around, they will ding you on that, because according to them, wood ladders are outlawed in commercial buildings. Heck, I even have a wood ladder here. It's an industrial type. I don't keep it out in plain sight. I keep it down in the basement. So when I need it, I just go and get it. But I don't use it all the time, but for the occasional time I gotta get on the top shelf or something, to get something I can get. But just note to self, wood ladders are completely outlawed. But fiberglass ladders are okay. But then again, if you're shopping for fiberglass ladders, you want to make sure that you pick out the appropriate size, like a 6 foot ladder does not always reach everything. So sometimes you might need a 7 or 8 foot, or 10 to 12 foot ladder, or 15, depending on what you're doing. And when you're crawling up and down a ladder, you never want to be carrying anything in your hands, unless you don't have to. And always take the three-point approach, as they call it. So you take one hand on one rung, one on the other, and then you carefully place your feet. And you only do one rung at a time. And never go any more than 2 rungs on the top. Because if you go any further than 2 rungs, or the last 2 rungs, you could lose your balance and fall and seriously injure yourself, or even die if you broke your neck the right way. So that's always something to keep into effect. And if you have fluorescent, like T12 lighting and you take the covers up because you think it looks cool without the covers on, your insurance company will also write you up for not having, because what could happen is sometimes those T12s or T8, not T12s, I'm talking T8s, those, so they explode or they blow apart because they do have a tendency of doing that on occasion. You'll have phosphorus flying through the air and phosphates, and not only is that hazardous to your health, but if you get in your eyes, you should immediately wash your eyes out. And if it gets in the food, you might as well just throw the food out because you don't want to get that stuff in your body because it will have serious health or serious consequences on your health. So keep that in mind. So just by having light covers over, not only does it make your light fixtures look nicer, true, you're not going to get the same lighting, but safety is more important than anything else. And basically, the whole objective is why the insurance company do that or go to such extents to make sure that it's basically so they can cover their rear so they don't have to pay any claims and make sure, because a lot of times, so let's say that somebody does result in injury on your property and you don't have the proper insurance, chances are you're going to have to fork out at least $120,000 for legal fees because that person will take you to court. Plus, that person will probably have medical bills, like if they break a hip or break a leg or something. Because when they do X-rays in that, a lot of times hospitals average it out to about $120,000 a X-ray to pay for their $1 million machines and all the technical crap that they have. So play it safe. Do whatever your insurance company tells you to do, even though it may seem silly and asinine, but in the long run, it'll prevent any injuries. And actually, I don't really have the job title of this, but I guess you could say I'm kind of a safety advisor for the church as well, even though that there's nobody else on the committee. But that's safety is a very important thing, even in your own house. You shouldn't have extension cords strung across the floor. You shouldn't have rubbish piled around your doors or access areas, and even your yard should be somewhat level in your driveway and that, because even like in the wintertime, if it gets icy and your driveway's uneven and you step in the wrong place, chances are you could slip and fall and seriously injure yourself. Or worse yet, be like me and slide down the driveway out into the street. That's actually happened to me. I was at a customer's house. It was so icy. Well, he was out in the country, and he also went along. Customer also went along for the ride because his driveway is like basically like this, and it was glare ice. And I was surprised I got my van up the driveway at that time because I don't have all-wheel drive. But what I did is I kicked it into the lower gear and just kind of carefully went up. And then big mistake I made at the top was I stopped a little too quickly and then I started sliding down the hill backwards. So between him and his son and me on the gas, very carefully they were able to push. But then as soon as I got out, then all of a sudden stepped in the wrong place in the driveway and Not only did I go sliding down, but he went sliding down. It's like a big slip and slide down to the road, down to the ditch. Oh, the ditch wasn't that deep, and the only thing that happened was I tore up my khaki pants. But that's the worst that happens to you, and you're not seriously injured, and you didn't get hit by a car in the process. You're pretty darn lucky. But stuff like that doesn't happen very often, and you don't want stuff like that to happen very often. And that was not planned. That was more or less, that was an accident. And basically, I wouldn't even sue anybody over that because, one, I should have been more careful when walking to the house from the driveway. So that's, and he was lucky that the driveway got plowed out before I got there. But the guy that plowed it should have put sand and salt down on it right away when he was there. But I think he ran out, and he had to go to the recycling center or something and get some. Because some municipalities make it available to the residents. I know the municipality I live in, after November 1st, it becomes available where you can go to the village recycling center and get yourself several pails of sand and salt mixture. And it works, but I don't recommend using it at your own house because you're going to track all that stuff in and you're going to get it all over your floors and stuff like that. So keep in mind, for at home, you're still better off with regular salt when it comes from the retail store. So on that note, I hope everybody enjoyed the difference between what a fire marshal looks at and a fire department official compared to an insurance agent. Not everybody has the opportunity to have the experience of learning about both. But you also kind of get to know the people as well that come and take care of the inspections, and you kind of it's like attending an OSHA seminar without really going to an OSHA seminar. It's kind of cool in a way, but most of you out there don't really care about that, but there are a few that their line of work may depend on proper safety and proper, like just as another word of advice. So if you're like on a job site, construction, or doing landscaping or maintenance or gardening or something, you probably should have at least have a pair of safety-toed shoes, like steel-toed or composite, depending on, because sometimes your insurance agent will ask you if your employees are using proper safety equipment, like safety glasses and proper hearing protection. And so not all places use that. Like typically in office, you wouldn't need that. Not even like here. You would not need steel toe shoes inside this building. So thank you for tuning in. God bless everybody. Stay safe. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the hot weather if you're in Wisconsin right now. So take care.